Shavua Tov. Welcome to Marat Machpelah in Hebron. We've been learning here tonight, and in the midst of many ideas that have been presented in Torah 78, the idea of Ruach HaKodesh, the idea of the breath, carrying Ruach HaKodesh, the idea of Ruach HaKodesh, as the Ramchal says, leads to Techiyat Meitim, and Techiyat Meitim, of course, the whole story begins again. And so this Torah, we've stopped at a particular point where Esther Amalka receives Ruach HaKodesh before she goes in to the king Achashverosh. And this is a very important moment because the Rebbe explains and others explain that when the person receives Ruach HaKodesh, it's like God takes over the person's personality, gives him the courage, the strength, the focus, the words, everything he needs to accomplish the divine mission. Tilbash Esther Malchut. So we're holding in, near the end of the Torah. And she wore Ruach HaKodesh. It came upon her like a garment, a new dress. But it's a new soul. It's a new being. And you know when you get it, because you know suddenly you're not you. That you're operating at a higher level that you're normally operating at. And our Rages taught us that she took on as a garment this Holy Spirit. And this is the spirit of the Techiyat Meitim. Now, what's the connection between Ruach HaKodesh and the revival of the dead? We're jumping levels, aren't we? That the spirit of life itself is the spirit of Ruach HaKodesh. But it gets expressed through different vessels at different times. So Esther received the garment of Ruach HaKodesh, but that same spirit, the Rebbe says, is an aspect of Tichi Ruach Yaakov, that Yaakov Avinu's spirit was revived when he was on his deathbed, almost at 120 years old, and he heard that his son Yosef was still alive in Egypt. Tichi Ruach Yaakov, that Yaakov's spirit came back. The Rebbe's chidush is that spirit coming back to Yaakov at 120, you're pretty well down for the count. You lost your son 22 years ago. And he's suddenly gets him back. And his spirit came back. And he went down to Egypt and lived 17 more years. That's an aspect of Ruach HaKodesh becoming Techiyat Meitim. Because the life force is the life force. And when it enters the vessel of a person, it's according to the mission or the purpose of that person. So after Yaakov's spirit was revived, the Rebbe goes on to tell us, amazingly, that this spirit of the revival of the dead gave Yaakov his Ruach HaKodesh back in order to have the power to go to Egypt and to help lead the nation and to give his final blessings to the 12 tribes. But then this is also Bechinat Shel Mashiach. Why Mashiach? Where does he enter the picture? Ki katuv atzlo, because it's written about him, lo lemar'e einai yishpot, that from the vision of his eyes the Mashiach will not judge. Okay, well, it tells us immediately that this great figure that we're all hoping for someday to fix us or fix the world, or however your imagination takes it, this Mashiach is not going to judge by what he sees. Rather, Ella Hevel Beruach HaKodesh Kazai Itaken Beretzo Partzuf Malchut B'Shlemut. It tells us that the Mashiach is going to judge by his breath, not by his sight, by his breath and his nose. Marach Vadin, he will smell and he will judge. Because there's this level of reception of information through your eyes, and there's this level of reception of information through your nose. And the information is what it's all about. If you're a judge, you need to know who's guilty and who's innocent, who's righteous and who's not. So Mashiach Maravadan, he's going to be able to smell and judge as opposed to see and hear evidence, witnesses, lawyers, etc. He's going to be able to smell the relative purity of a person and whether or not his position is true or not in any legal case. So that, what does that have to do with what we just learned, that Yaakov Avinu got a new living spirit and Esther Amalka got the spirit of Ruach HaKodesh on her, that all three are linked together, these powers in the soul. And Rabbi Nachman in his genius brings them all together for us to see how the spirits are connected between the courage of Esther to enter before the king, the revival of Yaakov's life and spirit in order to go down to Egypt and be with his family, and the spirit, the power of Mashiach himself to be able to judge millions of people honestly, straightly, and accurately. It's all about this spirit in the nose, through the breath, coming together. All right. And then this concept we've been talking about, the Partsuf is a collection of Sfirot, 10 powers in the soul. Well, the Arizal brought us the idea of the holy family of the faces, the Partsufim of Abba and Iba, Ben, Ubat, the father, the mother, the son, and the daughter. And the final Partsuf, the Partsuf that we're dealing with now, is this idea of kingship, which is the lowest power on the tree of life. And when all the pieces of that power, of that fallen power comes back together, kingship, he says that's when this power is going to come to this man that they're going to call Mashiach. Now, what does it mean to collect the powers of Malchut? Well, Malchut is the ability to be king. But what do you have to have in your backpack to be king? Well, you have to be able to judge. You have to be able to have mercy and compassion. You have to be able to have vision to build. You have to be what needs to be built in the kingdom. You have to be able to receive every single person at their level. These are all pieces of Malchut, right? The ability to speak to people, the ability, perhaps, King David was a musician as well, he was a poet as well. All these types of skills are all aspects of kingship. And so when they're all brought back together in a collective manner, in one soul, that soul is going to be the soul that's going to have the job to share the rest of what this Torah is going to teach us, which is how the whole world receives that power of Mashiach in themselves, which is an awesome thing. And the Rebbe goes on to explain it in the terms of Kabbalah with Hasidut as well. But for our purposes here and now, it's about 4:30 in the morning here in Hebron, and the sun's coming up, and it's time to pray. But to understand that these pieces of Malchut are coming together in all of us, and each person, the Rebbe tells us, has this spark of Mashiach in him, and this, which is this piece of kingship. That's why the Gemara says on the Shabbat, every Jew is a king. And that's why on Pesach, every Jew is supposed to recline at the table like a king, not eat like you normally eat sitting up. Because the kings used to have couches with golden tables, and they would lean and eat, in their relaxed fashion and not care about who's calling on any phone. And so this gathering in the powers of kingship is what we're talking about, which is focused in the mouth and the breath. And when all the cylinders are firing in the soul, if you will, then that Malchut receives its completion, and then that messianic spark in each and every person shines out, and the world becomes a different place. See, so when you're looking for the transformation of the world, look for it as an inside-out job. It's happening inside each person, inside each soul. the light of his own soul is going to light up and shine, and people are going to get it. And it's not going to be something that can be controlled by the media or controlled by the government or controlled by Hollywood or controlled by anything or anybody. And it says, Lo od el yikanaf et rabo, that a person will no longer hang on to the garment of his teacher, el kol chad v'chad miktanam v'gedolam, from the great to the small, Yedat Hashem, they will know Hashem, kayam li'mayin li'mechasim, like the water covers the sea. Every person will know God. And so there won't be any more need for a teacher, because you'll have your own teacher inside. Are you ready? I'm sure you are ready, because it's hard to sit and listen to talk to other people all the time. Is it better to hear your own voice speak to you the words of the living God in your own soul? And that's that spark that the Rebbe here is identifying with, that spark of Mashiach. So get ready, it's coming. And that's what we're getting ready for. Have a great week. We'll see you on all the platforms. Shavua Tov.